Good afternoon, George, and thank you very much indeed for joining the TRBusiness video. I'd like today, if I might, to move away from the traditional sort of line of questioning that we always have for you every year with your results, and you've done extremely well last year, and it looks like you're going to do 1.9 billion this year. But I'd like to talk to you about how you're planning for the infrastructure with regard to the massive expansions that are taking place, the smaller one in a year's time and the huge one thereafter.
Yes.
I mean, what's really involved in that? I mean, apart from trying to balance it with the profitability at the same time.
Well, there's a huge amount involved, obviously. The projected number of passengers using Dubai Airport, for example, this year will be 72 million and next year will be 82 million. And by 2020 it probably will be in excess of 125 or 30 million. So this is a huge task ahead of us all, not just from Dubai Duty Free but from Dubai Airport's point of view. Of course, the first big project, or not so big but big enough for us, is the Concourse D, which will replace Concourse C, which is presently being used by all airlines. So from the end of the first quarter of next year, Concourse D will be opened, linked to Terminal 1 by train. And we have a very nice operation here, about 6,800 square metres of retail space. We're presently working very closely now with our suppliers vis-à-vis the fit-out, letting them express their thoughts or their feelings or their desires within the footprint of Dubai Duty Free under the guidance of our retail designer, Stuart Caddick from Retail Concepts. So we think we've covered in good detail the fit-out and the appearance of the shop. We have already pre-arranged a range of merchandise which we'll sell there, and we're giving about 1,300 square metres of the 6,800 just for our perfume and cosmetics product category, which for us is the largest and growing the best, the biggest. Of course, then we have the issue of our staff strength and staffing Concourse D. Ultimately, Concourse C will close down when Concourse D opens and will be refurbished and then used by Emirates Airlines in addition to Concourse A and B, so they'll have A, B and C. Initially, we intend to take the staff presently manning Concourse D, Concourse C, and move them to Concourse C.
Okay.
So we don't see a huge increase in staff numbers for the opening of Concourse D.
But this is the hors d'oeuvre before the grand feast, isn't it?
Yes, of course it is. Yes, the calm before the storm probably, and it's only a very small undertaking when you compare it with what will happen in Jebel Ali in 2021. And of course Sheikh Mohammed has indicated he wants Jebel Ali Airport to open and increase the capacity at Dubai Airport itself from 100 million in 2020 to 135 million plus 100 million in 2021. So we're very excited about this. There will be one terminal and two concourses there. We will have about 40,000 square metres of commercial space there. The plan will be put in place at the beginning or the middle of 2015. So we'll be assigned a footfall area there, which we'll have to lay out as best we can. And of course go through the motions again of the merchandise layout, the staffing and. So we haven't begun to think about it in real terms just yet, but we do realise it's a huge challenge for us, to say the least. Now, we've done this in the past, of course, fragmented with A, B and C and Terminal 1 and Terminal 2. But putting it all together, I'm sure it'll be an enormous job, an enormous job.
Well, without asking you to show me the blueprint that's not there yet,
it's not there
already,
yet,
which would be ridiculous. I would be interested to ask you, how difficult is it sourcing staff?
Yes.
And I know people believe that it just happens in Dubai. Well, I don't think that's true. And also, of course, in quite a lot of cases, you actually provide residence for staff as well.
Yes.
I mean, the on-cost to the business will be significant. I mean, have you started to play around with projections in terms of how much the on-cost might be and what the impact might be on profitability? Because I know people think, oh, well, profitability doesn't matter to Dubai. I also know that it bloody does.
Yeah, it surely does, yes.
So therefore, have you thought about that at all?
We haven't thought about the numbers, but we're very aware of the staff cost to Dubai Duty Free as it presently stands, And we recruited over 2,000 people for Concourse A when it opened. And it seemed to happen seamlessly or very easily, but of course it did not happen very easily, with several trips to China, to the Philippines, to Eastern Europe, to the Middle East, and etc., to get proper staff that can cope with the needs of our diverse passenger mixture,
This is a side of what you do that most people don't see, isn't it?
They don't realise it. They come to the shop and they experience a nice level of service in many different dialects, but they don't stop and think, "She just spoke to me in Chinese, but she's a Chinese-speaking lady," you know. And the Chinese customers, for example, are very important to us, but yet it's difficult communicating with them. And then the Chinese staff, they only want to stay for 2 years. They get very efficient at what they do, and then they leave us. So the process begins again back to China for 200 or 300 more. So that's a big challenge for us. We've got a great HR manager in Nick Brewer, and Rachel Green is in charge of the training department, and they work endlessly to try and keep all this going. We accommodate our staff, of course, as well, and we transport them to and from work. We provide tickets for them back home when they're coming and going. So all these things are enormous. We have 5,500 staff, so you can imagine accommodating them by so many different nationalities as well, and they're living together in some form or other, and culturally they're all different. So even managing their personal, I won't say grievances, but issues, it can be a big struggle, you know. So but we've been doing this now for 30 years and we're getting better at it. So it comes, I suppose, easier to us, but not that easy after all, you know.
I remember being told by Carl McLaughlin not too long ago that I think he had something amazing. Please excuse me if I'm underestimating, but I think he said 50,000 job applications every year.
Yes, every year, and we're inundated with applications. We're now in an online application system, which we're encouraging our applicants to use, and it speeds up the process. And we can categorise them by skills as well. If you're looking for somebody with a special skill, it's there in a compacted format. But getting these reams of paper in, the bundle is that height in the office, and they get chucked around. We don't need them for now, we'll find them next month or the month after. So I think that the online application system will help us immensely in the future. But this only applies for local recruitment. If we go to the Philippines, we have an agency there which shortlists for us, maybe a couple of hundred candidates who have the criteria we're looking for, and then we go on and spend 2 weeks interviewing them and maybe selecting, maybe 1 out of 5 might be selected, you know, which is a very low average. But we try to get the right people for the right.
5.
Yeah, as low as, you know.
That's interesting.
Yes, so it's a lot of work, you know, and then they come up and they all look fantastic. But you don't stop and think, how did they actually get here, you know? It's been a long process for them, you know, interviews in the Philippines, coming from far and near down there, and transportation down there, as you know, is not so easy. So you come and you interview somebody who may have been waiting for 2 days to see you, and you feel, my God, you know, I should give this person the job, but is she right for the job, you know? So it's difficult. She tell you about her personal problems, her family problems, and. So it's not just about finding somebody to do the job, because they look at the big picture and not be, I suppose, thrown by little bit by what you're hearing, you know.
It must be a colossally sophisticated job to be able to try as best as you can to get the right people. Because once you've got them, you're flying them over. Maybe are they on a 2-year contract?
2-year contract, yes.
With great respect to the vast majority, I'm sure it would work out perfectly. There must be the odd one that doesn't, and then you could end up being stuck with somebody for 2 years.
Yes.
How does that work?
Well, of course, you know, they're all not perfect when they come. That's the first thing, and maybe that's because they're coming to a new location, cultural differences, missing home, missing their family. But we never say we get the wrong person. We try. It's our fault if we get the wrong person, really, and we have an obligation to make that person better. So we've got a big infrastructure which helps to train them, identify their weaknesses, and focus on their weaknesses in addition to their strengths. And eventually, I think we never sack anybody because they're not able to do their job. Never. They might just steal from us, we sack them, but that's just a common rule for everybody.
Quite right, yeah.
So we don't admit defeat in our selection process. We do sometimes maybe get somebody who's a bit weak, but we try and strengthen them. We have an obligation to them and to the company. If we take them from home and they make an effort to come to Dubai from China or from the Philippines, sending them home is the easy way, but it's not the way we move things forward, really.
Doesn't send a good message either, is it?
Not at all, and we don't want to be admitting our failures. Not really, but we think we have an obligation to them to come once they come, and nobody's that stupid that they can't learn if they pass the test to come, you know.
Well, I think considering the Philippine government have given you awards.
Yeah, twice actually, yes.
For your patronage, you know, of employment, and I think that they probably appreciate that. If I can just move over to Chinese speaking staff, because when we're talking about the number of Chinese physically, I know that the number is small, but the percentage impact that they have on the business is quite significant. I mean, I would imagine that you believe this is going to grow quite significantly in future.
Yeah, the whole world is depending on the growth of the Chinese market. You know, some people have been over-dependent on it in the past. I think they put too many eggs into one basket many years ago, like the cognac houses in particular I refer to. And of course it would be stupid to underestimate the potential that exists in China, but as Mr. Powell said the other day at the interview or at the press conference, there are still 800 or 900 million of them who are underpaid and undernourished and underfed, and they're still a big problem for the economy in China. We have a very small percentage of our passengers are Chinese or by origin. A substantial amount of our revenue comes from them, and we can only sell to them if we can talk to them. So a Chinese employee is vital for us to communicate with the Chinese passengers. We recognise the importance of them. We don't fall head over heels to facilitate them. We do so as best we can, but we're more focused on the global passenger mix, which is quite diverse. So I think only about 3% of our passengers are Chinese.
That is your strength, the diversity, isn't it?
I think because we try and cater for everybody's needs, which is what it's all about, in my opinion. If somebody from China wants to buy a Rolex watch, we have it for them. If somebody from Ireland wants to buy a Swatch watch, we also have it for them. So, but of course that means a huge product range, a huge effort to sell the two different types of watches from two different locations. But at least two people are satisfied, you know, rather than just selling for one and ignoring the other.
I must say that I looked at your diversity of product categories as well, and I was quite impressed that there weren't huge disparities between many of the categories, which I always think is a great thing for a business in travel retail duty free, because as we all know, cognac can go down, something else can go down, gold can go down, as we know.
Dramatically,
you know, but you seem to have insulated yourself. I mean, either intentionally or by happenstance.
No, it has happened. It has happened intentionally. Well, our policy is to be everything to everybody, which is not possible, of course. But we try and be as much to everybody as we possibly can. Our range is very extensive. We have over 25,000 SKUs, when maybe only 5,000 would do us if we're looking at it from a cost point of view. But we've got a very huge number of very satisfied passengers because of the range of merchandise that they offer. Some operators decide to ignore the lower spenders and they just focus on the higher spenders, and that's their business model. We think that's not the best approach to take, but so we survive and they survive in two different environments, but the same environment really. But I think we have more happier customers at our airports than you have at other airports.
Do you believe in the adage that the worker of today, who may be the manager tomorrow, will remember if they were treated well when they had a little amount of money to spend rather than a lot?
I think everybody remembers everything, especially personal things that happens to them. And I think we try and treat everybody fairly, whether he or she has money or doesn't have money. If they have no money, we should still treat them with respect. So I think that we're all human beings and we all have weaknesses and strengths, and we all remember very clearly what has happened to us, whether it be a nice thing or a bad thing, especially if it's a bad thing, you know. So we're very conscious about how we treat our customers and how we react to their needs, you know.
So George, do you feel that there is an imperative to try to ensure that the shops aren't too intimidating for perhaps people with less disposable income than perhaps people at the other end?
Yes, definitely. We realise all people are equal, number one, although they may have different spending powers. We do realise that sometimes one might get intimidated by virtue of the appearance of the shop. We do not have security admitting or not allowing people into the shop. But our ambition is to offer the best commercial environment possible for all our customers. So we work very closely with the vendor because they know best how to present a bottle of perfume or a bottle of whiskey or whatever. But we operate under strict guidelines as to the height and the dimension and the illumination within the shop. But for us, a scary customer is a dangerous customer and will not buy from you. So we don't like to intimidate them, for sure.
And you might put them off for life.
Well, you don't want to put anybody off for life, for sure. Even for once, it's a loss to us, you know. I think we go to extremes, really, to take care of the customer's feelings and the customer's needs. And this is reflected quite well by our sales. You know, we're one of the biggest operators in the world now at an airport. So we must be doing something quite right, you know.
I don't dispute that you don't do that. I'm just interested why you think it's important. I know you do that.
Yes.
Last question, George, would be in terms of competing for the best staff,
yes,
both locally and even through agencies overseas.
Yes.
The number of businesses that now are looking for staff, quality staff, just increasing, or has been anyway, even if there is a little bit of a slowdown in Asia. So I would imagine that the pressure is going to grow for a limited pool of people. Is that going to be tough?
The pressure is growing all the time, you know, and more people are becoming better employers, which is wonderful, really. Yeah. We have a thinking that we must give the best to our employees as best as we can under the government system in Dubai. We find we have a reputation for being fair with our employees. We don't victimise them or abuse them or overwork them. I think they're happy with us. Okay, somebody offers them a better job in a different capacity. Like Emirates Airlines might have them as a flight attendant, for example. If they get that job, we say, okay, good luck. You know, we're happy that they got the job. But the better ones stay with us, and we try and promote them. They get promotional jobs with perfume houses and liquor houses. So they're all the time incentivized to stay with us. And the longer they stay, the better the treatment gets financially, in financial terms.
And a lot of them do, don't they?
Yeah, we had 120 employees at the beginning. We still have 44 or 45 of them still left, like myself, hanging in there. But we're very proud of them, you know, and they're very proud of the company. When they decide to leave, it's almost a ritual, you know. They come in and they're almost crying. Their wife doesn't want to go back to India, and you say, well, you know, we try and help them as best we can. But at the end of the day, they have to go home, you know. And there's a real sense of sadness. Yet joy, because we may have given a job to their son or their daughter, you know.
So when people turn around and they say, yeah, but you talk about this family, you know, family feeling, there really is a family feeling, isn't there?
Definitely. Yeah. Mr. McLaughlin, you know, he emphasises the need and necessity to be kind to people. He's a very good boss, and he's a very fair boss as well. So we all feel comfortable, and we know that nothing bad will happen to us whilst we work at the Dubai Duty Free, unless we do something stupid. We'll never sack anybody for doing anything wrong except stealing. It's a zero tolerance for stealing policies, but I think people know when they're doing well. If they can do better, then so be it, you know.
So hopefully preserve this this kind of caring side to as you get bigger.
I think it's a very important element of our business, both to care for our passengers and to care for our employees, to care for our merchandise, the care we have for our suppliers. You know, I think if they're all happy enough, things work much more smoothly, because there's lots of troubles without these elements being brought into it, you know.
Quite right. Yeah. George Horan, thank you very much indeed for talking to us this afternoon.
Thank you, my pleasure. Thank you.